So hello and welcome from Sherry Forsyth, a life coach in South Africa. I welcome you to this sixth talk in the series of how to become uniquely and powerfully you. And the talk today is on the role that kindness and compassion can play in helping us to be the very best that we can be. Before we start talking about kindness and compassion, I would like to thank you all very much for the feedback that you have been giving me either on the live video itself or in subsequent viewings. I appreciate the fact that we've started a conversation. So thank you, and I encourage you to comment, to share this video, to like it, to make suggestions. Let's continue the conversation that we've already started. I also would like to encourage you to put in the comments box where you're from. It just helps me to know where my listening audience are from, and it gives me a huge kick to see where you are in the world. So today's topic is kindness and compassion. And the first thing that we need to be aware of is, like all the things that we've spoken about, whether it's in our journey through grief or whether it is in this series of becoming uniquely and powerfully you, is that kindness is a choice. It's a choice that we make. We can choose to be kind, or we can choose to be disrespectful, or we can choose to be bullying, or we can choose to be nasty. And a lot of people don't realize that it actually is a choice. So that's where we need to start. It's our choice to be kind or not. And so what we're going to talk about today is the two different aspects of kindness and compassion, namely, firstly, kindness to others, and then the huge area of self-compassion, in other words, kindness to ourselves. So let's start with speaking about kindness to others. According to a neurosurgeon in Joburg, Dr. Ian Weinberg, his opinion is that we are wired for compassion. Neurologically, our bodies are geared to be kind and compassionate. So in other words, when we do that, the chemistry in our body is going to be happy. We're going to feel really good about ourselves and about others. But what many people don't know is that the neurochemistry that results when someone has given to us, in other words, we feel, wow, they've been so kind, all the dopamines and the feel-good chemicals start buzzing around in our bodies, and life is really good. What many people don't know is that when we give, those same chemicals are present. So in other words, whether we give or whether we receive, those feel-good chemicals are released in our bodies. So as much as we feel wonderful when we have been cared for, we can do a win-win situation by caring for someone else and making them feel fantastic. But our own bodies will also be saying, thank you very much, as the neurochemicals buzz around in our bodies and make us feel better. So especially if you are battling a trauma and you can go to quite a dark place or a difficult place, one of the ways that you can start lifting yourself out of that, in fact, is to be kind. And there can be very, very little acts of kindness that can make such a huge difference. There's a way that you can maybe challenge yourself by trying to do a random act of kindness once a week, or maybe more frequently than that, depends on your own busyness. But the whole idea of a random act of kindness means it just comes out of nowhere. When the opportunity arises, you choose the very kind option. And it's similar to that movie, Pay It Forward, where somebody might be kind to you, you pay it forward by being kind to someone else. And so in that way, you start a whole new way, a whole new vibe of our being in the world, with kindness at the center. There's also a saying that we need to choose to be kind, not right. And boy, does our ego love to be right. We will fight in order to prove that we are right. We will stomp on people to prove that we are right. But in fact, what we can do is, instead of feeding our ego and giving us a false sense of success, importance, possibly even arrogance, if we choose to be kind, not right, we go straight into the win-win neurological situation. So I'll say that again. Let's choose to be kind, not right. And it is a difficult thing to do, otherwise everyone would be doing it. There's a woman called Lizzie Manaskis, who was born with a condition where she remained very small, very thin. She was blind in one eye. And she chose, or her parents chose, to send her to a normal school where she was bullied very badly because she was different. And she's written a book called Dare to Be Kind. But if you are interested in following the story a little bit more, you can follow her on Facebook and just check out her story. She's now become a motivational speaker. And one of the major messages she is giving out there is choose to be kind. So going along with that theme of her daring to be kind is that very often we don't know what's happening in someone else's life. And the last thing they need is for us to be a bit judgmental, a bit harsh, maybe say things in a bit of a defensive or aggressive way. So how about if we just assume that we don't know what others are dealing with and that they're dealing with something big, and they really don't need us to add to that burden. What they need is for us to be kind and gentle with them. And so if we can carry that around kind of in the back of our mind, we don't know what they're dealing with, so let's choose the generous option, which is to treat them with kindness and compassion. So that's really, I'm just touching on this whole huge topic of kindness in this video. We could have workshops and workshops about it. But that's generally all I want to say about being kind to others. The next part of the video is the whole area of self-compassion. In other words, being kind to yourself. And the more I coach, the more I realize that this is so severely lacking in all of us. We tend to be so hard on ourselves. We judge ourselves so badly because we're not perfect. And that whole thing that I've spoken about before, about how toxic perfectionism is very real when it comes to this whole idea of self-compassion. And so we can use self-compassion as an antidote to fighting perfectionism, to helping deal with anxiety, to help us move towards acceptance. I mean, there's a whole list of ways that we can harness self-compassion. And I think it's a hugely growing topic in today's world. So the lady who's at cutting edge with the research on self-compassion is a lady called Kristin Neff. That's spelt with a K, Kristin, and N-E-F-F. So if you want to Google her, there's a wealth of information there. So what has happened is, in our hugely competitive and ego-driven world, we need to get to the top, and we stomp on everybody else in order to finally reach that successful pinnacle as the CEO of the company. And there's certainly not a lot of kindness and compassion in our journey. And certainly in the business world in general, there's not a lot of kindness and compassion, because what we are driven by in the business world is making the money. So let's assume we get to being CEO of a company, and we now feel fabulous because we've reached the big corner office, we've reached the high salaries, we've driving the fancy car, living in the fancy house. And now the pressure really starts, because now that we've made it, we have to stay there. And so the way we stay there is we become very hard on ourselves, and we cannot tolerate any mistakes, because any mistake might have us toppling off right down to start at the bottom again. So we're very hard on ourselves. The pressure increases. As the pressure increases, physically it's not good for our bodies. Our stress increases. We actually become that very hardened, maybe embittered, very driven, very actually horrible person to be around. So they did a study comparing CEOs of companies who were cast in the traditional mold that I've just explained to you. And they compared them with CEOs who were driven by self-compassion. And the findings were really interesting in that those who were driven by self-compassion not only were better in their job, they were more popular amongst their employees, they were far more emotionally resilient, and therefore they lasted longer in their jobs. So that's what we want to do. We want to last longer in the way we are living. And so if we treat ourselves with compassion, that's what the result is. So what is self-compassion actually? So I like to keep things really simple. And so what self-compassion is that we give ourselves a break. We cut ourselves some slack. We don't expect ourselves to be perfect. In other words, we embrace our humanness. And part of our humanness is that we're going to make mistakes. So if we treat ourselves with compassion, we know that we're going to be making mistakes. We're very accepting of our human frailty. But then comes the real kicker, is instead of beating ourselves up about the mistakes, what we do is we harness and learn from those mistakes to become an even better person or leader. Okay, so instead of beating ourselves up and everything that negative that goes with that, if we choose to treat ourselves with compassion, what happens is we improve upon ourselves. Plus, we're not battering our confidence. We're not battering ourselves. We are building ourselves. So there's another win-win. If we choose self-compassion, we not only are not destroying ourselves, but actually we are building ourselves up. So coming to the end of this little chat on kindness and compassion, the challenge that I put out to you is to make that choice as often as you can, to rather choose kindness over any other negative interaction. Choose kindness and compassion and rewire our brains so that that is the pathway that we will choose first over other behaviors. So let's start our ripple of kindness, as we've tried to start ripples of many of these other soft, gentle words. Let's start our ripple of kindness in the world, and let it start with you. What kindness can you do today? What random act of kindness can you do this week? And our ripple will start just with us, and it will start moving outwards. And then hopefully all the ripples will eventually join together in one huge tsunami of kindness. Imagine our world if we lived like that. So let's do our bit. So I thank you, as always, for taking the time to watch this video. If you found it to be of value or you think it could help somebody else, I ask you please to share it. You can also follow me on YouTube and on Twitter. And shortly I will be rebranding to my name of Sherry Forsyth. So watch this space. But until then, from me at Life Vision, I wish you a wonderful week until we chat again next Thursday at 8 o'clock. Thank you so much. Bye.